Marking the official birthday of His Majesty the King. Now on BBC One, live from Horse Guards Parade, it's Trooping the Colour.
This is one of the greatest military parades in the world, held every year to mark the sovereign's official birthday. And what a stage this is, shortly to be filled with hundreds of musicians, horses and military as they accompany His Majesty the King to his birthday parade. This is Trooping the Colour. What a sight this is. There's a light breeze blowing through the London plane trees, the sunshine trying to stream through the clouds overhead, and the regiments of foot guards on centre stage here on Horse Guards Parade in those iconic red tunics and bearskins. 8,000 people are gathered in the stands, ready for one of the most historic events in the national calendar. It dates back more than 200 years. And it's number 7 company, Coldstream Guards, who have the honour of providing the escort and trooping their colour to mark the King's official birthday. Standing out in their bright red plumes. Formed in 1650, they are the longest continuously serving regiment in the British Army. They're celebrating their 375th anniversary. Meanwhile, at Buckingham Palace, the Sovereign's escort of the Household Cavalry is standing by to accompany the King up the Mall for his birthday parade. And you see the magnificent sight of the Royal Standard flying overhead. Now, there are many ways in which you can enjoy our coverage this morning. Audio described commentary with JJ Chalmers is available for those who are blind or partially sighted, and that is via the red button and iPlayer. And you can find uninterrupted commentary-free coverage on iPlayer. However you're watching this morning, the scene is set for a magnificent birthday celebration that will culminate at 1 o'clock with the Royal Balcony appearance and the spectacular Royal Air Force flypast. Now, away from ceremonial duties, the troops here have a dual role. The Coldstream Guards have served in every major conflict since 1650, and that includes at Waterloo, in the Crimea, and at the Somme, right the way through to Iraq and Afghanistan in more recent times. As they prepared for today, the Coldstream Guards shared an insight into the close bonds of their regimental family.
I'm Garrison Sergeant Major Vern Stokes, a Coldstream Guardsman. I'm in year 37 of service. My job on the run-up to the day really is to bring all of the different groupings, the foot guards, the bands, the mounted troops, and piece them all together so it's seamless choreography.
My name's Lieutenant Colonel Storm Green, and this year I'm the Field Officer in Brigade Waiting.
Shoulder up!
In the upcoming weeks, I've got to learn to ride and learn about 250 separate words of command. I feel a little bit vulnerable, sat on top of a horse that's 700 kilograms and something that I can't always control. Of course, it's a special parade to take part in, made extra special by the fact it's our 375th anniversary this year.
Charge! Arms!
My name's Andrew Fleming, and I've been in the Coldstream Guards for 20 years. I'm going to be on the parade as a regimental sergeant major to take the colours, hand them over to the ensign. They have 44 of our battle honours on the colours, and those battle honours signify all the battles we've been through history. It represents the fallen, it represents us as a regiment, as a family, and that's the colours that we get behind and follow.
All these soldiers on parade, they're not just ceremonial soldiers, they are dual role. So whilst they might be on parade this year, almost certainly next year they'll be somewhere else across the world.
I served with the Garrison Sergeant Major on operational tour to Iraq, and with Lieutenant Colonel Green in Afghanistan.
I've known them for an awful long time, and I think they are remarkable people, and it's wonderful to serve alongside them.
Although I haven't served with them for my entire career, there are times where our threads loop back together, and like any family members in trying situations, we know we can rely on each other.
Lessons you learn from combat operations are very interchangeable to what we do on ceremonial operations. You don't leave any stone unturned.
Parading in front of the King is a special experience at any time, so to be able to do it with people that are effectively your brothers makes me feel great and know that I've got people out there that have got my best interests at heart.
There's a saying that, when you join the army, when you join your regiment, you are joining a family, and that certainly is true of the Coldstream Guards. And you will meet people within that regiment that will be friends for life. And I think, having that experience of being on operations builds an incredible amount of trust because we've had those shared experiences in the past.
An undeniable brotherhood in the regiment. And the man we briefly met there is the commanding officer of the parade today, and he joins us now, Lieutenant Colonel Storm Green. And gorgeous George. Storm, I'll come to yourself first. Moments before you ride out, what's going through your head?
Yeah, still pretty nervous, but confident that I've rehearsed enough that I can execute on the day, and all the better to know that I'm on this incredible horse who knows exactly what he's got to do.
So much experience. He's absolutely stunning, but it's a particularly special day for him as well.
It is. It's his last day on parade. So George is 24 years old, got a lot of experience, seen a lot of birthday parades, not quite as many as the King has, but today's his last day, so extra special for him and for me.
Well, happy retirement, George, and go well today, Storm.
Thanks very much.
We'll be keeping a very close eye on them there. Radzi Chinyanganya, and we'll be hearing more from him later, and he was with Lieutenant Colonel Storm Green, the field officer in brigade waiting aboard George there, and the man in command of the 1,000 troops who are formed up on Horse Guards Parade. They are in 6 guards, and we'll have a look at them now. There's number 7 Company Coldstream Guards, who are providing the escort. The Grenadier Guards provide numbers 2, 3 and 4 guards. Number 5 Guard is comprised of 9 and 12 Companies Irish Guards, and identifiable by their plumes of St Patrick's blue. And F Company Scots Guards make up number 6 Guard. Now, I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by someone who has served with the Coldstream Guards for over 20 years and who, most importantly, was the commanding officer, the field officer in brigade waiting last year, Colonel James Colby.
Good morning, Claire. It's lovely to be with you on this very warm day on Horse Guards for a very special year for the Coldstream Guards.
Well, it is very much your regimental family trooping their colour, and we saw you in some of the photos in that film. What does it mean to you to see them out on parade today?
I am busting with pride today. It's a very special sight to see.
And it's a big anniversary for the Coldstream Guards, and particularly a special week.
Absolutely. 375 years of continual service. Even more special made yesterday when His Majesty the King presented new colours to the 1st Battalion and number 7 Company in Windsor, surrounded by our friends and family. It was a really special personal event.
And there it is, the newly presented King's colour. And it looks staggering. Number 7 Company Coldstream Guards, the focal point, that colour is, of today's events. Well, for the men and women on parade responsible for trooping that colour, this is a big moment in the spotlight, most especially for the new recruits among them who are experiencing a high-profile start to Foot Guards life. We joined 3 of them just a few short weeks ago at their passing out parade in Catterick, the beginning of their journey in the Coldstream Guards.
When I joined the army, it was the Coldstream Guards I went to first. They're from Windsor, and I'm from Windsor too, so I've grown up seeing them all my life. It means quite a lot to me, it means quite a lot to my family as well. Seeing them in the stands and they're smiling at you, but you can't really smile back, so that makes it the more difficult.
I had a really good job as a delivery man, and one day I thought, oh, this is just a bit too easy for me. I want to challenge myself mentally, physically, and just do something in my life.
This time last year, I was on a scaffold restoring period properties, and now I'm doing the King's birthday parade, so pretty big difference.
The chest needs to be nice and smooth, there's no wrinkles.
It's an honour to don the red tunic. It's something that everyone in this platoon has worked very hard for. It's been a bit of a busy year. My wife is due to give birth, and then I'm trooping the colour, so I'm probably not going to get a lot of sleep. but I'm hoping that the training that I've had has helped me out a little bit with that.
Having the eyes of the Garrison Sergeant Major on you is the extra pressure. It's nice that there's another 2 people in the same position as me, because if I'm doing something wrong, I'm not doing it wrong on my own.
It's going to be long days, late nights, a lot of boot polish, probably a massage roller as well to roll these legs out.
It's hot, and obviously the rifle gets a bit heavy, but it's just working as a team really with everyone, like staying in line. That's the hardest part.
Putting on a bearskin for the first time was a little bit different from a forage cap.
So to maintain this, take it in the shower, lukewarm water, a little bit of shampoo, rinse it out, brush it down, hang it upside down to dry. Next morning, pick it up, give it a nice little shake, and it'll just puff out like that.
The ground is gravel, so it's a bit slippy. It's also a lot bigger, so it's a lot harder to hear because the band is playing. So you sort of got to whisper down the line when things are coming.
This is the real start of my career, seeing what being a Coldstream Guard is all about.
We've been practicing for nearly a month now, and ultimately you just want it to look good for those watching, for the King and my family back at home.
Such interesting insight there. And Guardsman Man was talking about his wife expecting a baby. Well, the baby boy has arrived 2 weeks ago, named Brody. And at Buckingham Palace, the first of the carriages carrying senior members of the royal family are setting off for the half-mile journey along the Mall. And in the first carriage, we see Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Edinburgh and Vice Admiral Sir Timothy Lawrence. And just wonderful to see because of the weather. Carriages are open, we can get a really good sight of everybody. In the second carriage, we saw briefly there the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester. The Duke of Gloucester is Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Anglian Regiment and the Royal Army Medical Corps. And we will see on the uniformed members of the royal family that they are wearing black armbands. And His Majesty has requested that very much in recognition of those affected by the tragic Air India crash earlier this week. There will also be a minute's silence held during the parade on Horse Guards. And the Mall, the great thoroughfare cutting through the heart of ceremonial London, decorated today, as you can see, with more than 60 Union flags. And the crowds have been gathering since early this morning to get prime position. And they will get a wonderful view, not just of that procession, but obviously everybody on the return down the Mall and in prime position for the flypast later on. Every uniform sparkling, boots polished. And the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester attended a Thanksgiving service at Copenhagen Cathedral just last month. eyes once again on Buckingham Palace as His Majesty the King prepares to depart for his official birthday parade. And the royal salute will be sounded by the field officer's trumpeter of the Sovereign's escort, Trooper Lizzen, ahead of the departure of King Charles III. And so King Charles III. And we see the Princess of Wales there with the three children, Prince George, Prince Louis, Princess Charlotte. King Charles III, alongside Queen Camilla, who holds the position as Colonel of the Grenadier Guards and is wearing a brooch in their honour. And for the King, his third birthday parade as monarch. He's obviously taken part in considerably more than that, and he will travel up to Horse Guards, where he'll take his place as Colonel-in-Chief of all 7 regiments of the Household Division. And the Princess of Wales is on parade as Colonel of the Irish Guards, riding past the Queen Victoria Memorial with her 3 children. And the King is wearing the uniform of the Coldstream Guards. And also, as you can see there, the black armband in honour of the victims and all those affected by the Air India plane crash. And the national anthem there being played as the first carriages make their way through. And as you can see, number 3 guard opening up to allow them through to Wellington Arch. And what a sight that is, James, coming down the Mall in all its glory. And a very different view for you this year, but gosh, that must make you proud.
A very different view, slightly more comfortable than last year, but that is a view, one that I wouldn't have seen last year. And it's great to see His Majesty in a Coldstream Guards uniform, first time since 1950. In fact, just yesterday I met the ensign of the 1950 troop, Lord Nixon, who is Still alive and well and sharp as a pin.
Now, leading the Sovereign's procession is the Brigade Major of the Household Division, Lieutenant Colonel Charlie Foynette, responsible for ensuring that this procession and parade runs like clockwork. Apologies, we've got a few sound issues there. We will give it another go in a second. But actually, let's talk about Lieutenant Colonel Charlie Foynette, because, James, you know him well. You've served together.
Really
quite
is.
a responsibility on his shoulders.
There really is. Charlie is a really good friend of mine. In fact, we went through Sandhurst pretty much at the same time. And we used to row against each other before the army. He's a fantastic soldier. Really is one of life's good guys. And he's on Percy today. Percy's known for being a little bit of a firecracker. But Charlie's got him well under control. He's doing a really good job.
Well, let's now see if we can hear from him.
This is my first birthday parade as Brigade Major, and indeed my first one on a horse. I think it's Percy's first one under a Brigade Major as well, so we'll be a team. It's a wonderful feeling, I think, to step out on parade with your regimental family. To go down the Mall when it's fully dressed for a ceremonial occasion, it's a breathtaking experience, it really is, when you are in the middle of all that focused energy of a crowd is quite an experience. We're all a very small part of this big thing that's been around a lot longer than us, and soon enough we won't be part of it anymore. So just to have the opportunity for a brief period to be part of this is really special.
So the Brigade Major and Percy leading the way. And he's flanked by the retinue, the four smartest turned-out troopers of the Life Guards and the Blues and Royals, and they're selected at the regiment's annual competition at Windsor Horse Show, which took place last month. And they are, in turn, followed by the mounted band of the Household Cavalry and the 1st and 2nd Divisions of the Sovereign's Escort, formed of the Blues and Royals behind. And it makes such a difference when the sun is shining, because the gold thread really sparkles. And I mentioned briefly, James, but I'd love some more detail of the uniform the Coldstream Guards being sported by the King and the significance of this.
It is significant to see His Majesty with a brand new Coldstream Guards tunic on is brilliant, and it'll be dear to everyone who serves in the regiment. The cap star that you see on his forage cap is that of the Garter Star, so it's the highest order of chivalry that we have in this country, awarded right back at the early days of the regiment, where we were also appointed the motto second to none, that we must not be second to anyone.
Now, obviously, we see most of the family of the Prince of Wales in the carriage, but he himself is riding in that Sovereign's procession, along with the other royal colonels. And you can see them just behind the carriage carrying the King and Queen. So the Prince of Wales is riding as Colonel of the Welsh Guards, following in his father's footsteps, and the King was Colonel of the regiment for nearly 50 years. You see the Princess Royal very clearly there on the right, riding in the uniform of the Blues and Royals. And this is her 27th year as Colonel of the regiment. And she's also riding as Gold Stick in Waiting. James, what does that mean?
So Gold Stick in Waiting stems from Tudor times, and essentially a threat to Henry VIII's life, and he decided he wanted a closer bodyguard. And Gold Stick is the person charged with the security of the sovereign over all others.
And also riding in that band of three, the Duke of Edinburgh, who is riding in the uniform of the Scots Guards. He took over their colonelcy last year, succeeding the Duke of Kent. And he's also Colonel of the London Guards, who form some of the streetliners on parade today. And all three of those horses were provided by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So the Prince of Wales riding Derby, the Duke of Edinburgh riding Sir John, and the Princess Royal riding Noble. Not all of the Household Division regiments have a member of the royal family as their colonel. Also riding in this great procession are Lieutenant General Sir Edward Smith Osborne, who has been Colonel of the Life Guards since 2019, and Lieutenant General Sir James Bucknell with the red plaid. And he's been Colonel of the Coldstream Guards since 2009.
He has indeed, and General James comes from somewhat of a Coldstream family. His brother was a Coldstream and both of his sons were Coldstream. In fact, one is still serving and has just recently been promoted to Major. It's also worth knowing that whilst not drawn, he's carrying his grandfather's sword, which saw service in the First World War, and he then went on to command 30 Corps and the Normandy landings in the Second World War.
And as we get a clearer shot there of Her Majesty the Queen, that brooch is significant.
That is the brooch of the Grenadier Guards that would have been given to Her Majesty by the regiment as a regimental gift, and it is often worn on regimental parades.
And just to reiterate that the Princess of Wales on parade as Colonel of the Irish Guards, and it was their colour that was trooped last year. And she's been Colonel of the Irish Guards since December 2022, took over from her husband, the Prince of Wales. And the King's procession making their turn now towards Horse Guards, ready for the parade to begin at 11 o'clock. And you see there on the left the flags of all 56 member countries of the Commonwealth flown along Horse Guards Road. Commonwealth, something the King is particularly passionate about and committed to as an association. Those beautiful Windsor Greys leading the way. See there on the left, the flag of Canada. The King, having recently returned from Canada, his first visit to the country as monarch, he delivered the King's speech and formally opened the Canadian Parliament, a hugely significant visit. It meant an awful lot to His Majesty. And among those welcoming the King to Horse Guards Parade, a contingent of Chelsea pensioners from the Royal Hospital, Chelsea, and I think a couple of Coldstreamers among them.
Absolutely, in the centre of the shot there was Ozzy Telford, who joined in 1958. Another very proud Suffolk boy like me, but he went on for years to work with the Regimental Association looking after the regimental veterans. There's also ex-Sergeant Dean Emerson, who works in the hospital, and of note, he was the Master Tailor for Prince Philip's funeral.
The head coachman there, who salutes the colour with his whip as the carriage passes the colour party on the parade ground. And the Royal Colonels also salute the colour. As 11 o'clock nears, the King's Birthday Parade of 2025 is about to begin. first section of today's ceremony begins as the King, the colonels of the regiments and senior officers move off to inspect the line of guards. And as the commanding officer, James, this time last year, what were you thinking?
This is an extraordinarily proud moment. There's been weeks of work going into this part here where you are about to be personally inspected by the Colonel-in-Chief. And His Majesty he has an eye for detail. He's seen these parades many, many more times than the rest of us, and the standard is high. The standard is perfection, and there absolutely is no negotiation.
And the King and Queen there in the Ascot Landau carriage, which offers them a very, very good view. And the King really knows what he's looking for here.
He really does, and after the parade, once everyone's back in Buckingham Palace, the Field Officer Brigade waiting has to go for a one-to-one debrief, and if it's not up to scratch, he will be told in no uncertain terms what needs to be done for next year.
The music you're hearing is Bonnie Tyneside, based on folk songs from the Northeast. It's an arrangement by Major Justin Tegerty, who's taking part in his first birthday parade as Director of Music of the Band of the Coldstream Guards. Change in tempo, and this is called The King's Guard. It was written in 1904 for Edward VII. Majesty is about to pass the sovereign standard of the Blues and Royals, carried by Squadron Corporal Major Richard Hendy. The procession continues past the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery and the saluting battery of His Majesty's household troops. They are commanded by Major Luke Wadman, and the King salutes the lead gun, which is their regimental colour.
Also on parade, you'll see riding is the Chief of Staff of London District and the Deputy Commander of the Household Division, Colonel Guy Stone. This is his 10th birthday parade since joining the Army 30 years ago. He has extensive operational experience and was a key player in delivering the late Queen's funeral.
The unmistakable figure there of the Major General commanding of the Household Division, James Bowder, riding Otto. He commissioned into the Grenadier Guards nearly 30 years ago and has been a seen service in Northern Ireland and Afghanistan. Let's hear his thoughts.
The occasion of the King's official birthday, I believe, is the closest we have to a national day across the United Kingdom. It showcases the very best of the British Army, not least the qualities of discipline, teamwork and professionalism. Things that are not only important on Horse Guards Parade, but of course on the contemporary battlefield. It's a huge privilege to be part of an event that is quite so iconic, and it's something that I'm extremely proud of.
Let's take a look at the colour and those charged with guarding it. The two sentries of the colour party, Guardsman Walton and Guardsman Hotchin, flank the sergeant of the colour party, Louis Elms.
Sergeant Elms is a very modest man. However, I know he's extraordinarily proud to be in this role today. But also, Guardsman Walton's father was a serving Coldstreamer, and I had the opportunity to meet the King yesterday at the presentation of new colours and told him personally how proud he is of his son on parade today.
Now, the parade will soon get underway with the troop from the massed bands of the Household Division in slow and quick time under the direction of Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Halliday. And there's something special in store for the quick march today.
There absolutely is. There's a new composition called The Garrison, which is written in recognition of the distinguished service of the Garrison Sergeant Major Vern Stokes, who we see on the picture today. This will be the quick march that follows the slow Les Huguenots.
Now, before the troop of the massed bands, we are going to pause for a minute's silence as a mark of respect for those lost in and all those affected by the Air India plane crash.
There will now be a minute of silence to remember those who lost their lives and those affected by the Indian airplane disaster. Would you please stand?
In time-honoured tradition, the slow march is Les Huguenots. Signal for the mass bands to countermarch is given there by the raised trombone of Colonel Sergeant Andrew Mercer. This is his 23rd birthday parade. And it is a magnificent sight. There are approximately 1,338 soldiers on parade, and the number includes 244 musicians. Senior Drum Major Gareth Chambers gives the order for a change of pace and a musical transition from old to new with the piece composed specifically for this year's Quick Troop, The Garrison. And the lone drummer breaks away, drummer Matthew Sayer marching to a position to the right of the escort. Garrison being played for His Majesty the King on parade. There is the man himself, the Garrison Sergeant Major, Vern Stokes. And what an honour.
What an honour indeed. What an honour indeed. A special piece of music written for you and then performed in front of the Sovereign. You'd have seen him tapping his pace stick there. I think we even saw him crack a smile. If you listen closely, you'll hear the rhythm. Morse code, ... which is VS, Vern Stokes.
That's fabulous. The drummer plays 8 bars of a field signal called the drummer's call, recalling an age when communication on the battlefield relied upon the drums.
Escort for the colour!
The orderly, Guardsman Alfred Owusu Sechi, marches forward to take the pace stick from Regimental Sergeant Major Andrew Fleming, who can then draw his sword, ready to protect the colour. And he is the only warrant officer on parade to draw a sword.
Standard! Ease! Escort for the colour! In close order! Left! Dead!
The subaltern of the escort, Captain Jolyon Reed, gives the order for the escort to take up their dressing in close order. It's a tighter formation for the march forward to collect the colour.
Escort for the colour! By the left! Quick march!
The escort steps off to the rousing march of the British Grenadiers. The escort marches forward now, and you will see them halt 16 paces from the colour party, ready for the collection of the colour.
Open order! Right! There! Hands! Hands! Hands up! On attack! Hard! Hard! Guards! Turn! Change! Arms! Slow! Arms!
Regimental Sergeant Major Andrew Fleming now prepares to take possession of the colour. He will protect it with his sword, ready to hand it over safely to the ensign, Lieutenant Max Martin, who will troop the colour through the ranks. And in his more than 20 years in the army, Andrew Fleming has served on all 4 operational tours to both Iraq and Afghanistan. James, we heard earlier about the significance of the colour, and this a hugely special moment.
It really is. This is unique. This is the only time that this happens. He's exceptionally proud to be doing this role today.
The ensign salutes the colour and will receive it from the Regimental Sergeant Major. And what is the role of Regimental Sergeant Major?
The Regimental Sergeant Major is the senior soldier in any regiment, but in particular an infantry battalion. His key role is discipline and standards. But essentially, he's also the big brother to all the soldiers below him. But he's also a very close advisor to the commanding officer. Most commanding officers won't do much without consulting their Regimental Sergeant Major.
Present! Arms!
Having received the colour safely, today's ensign, Lieutenant Max Martin, takes over, and to maximise protection of the colour, the 4 non-commissioned officers on the flanks will turn outwards and port arms. The ensign and the Regimental Sergeant Major resuming their positions within the escort, and the escort will advance now in slow time to the music of the massed bands, playing Escort to the Colour, the traditional stepping off music for nearly 50 years.
Escort to the colour! By the centre! Slow! March!
Now keep your eyes on this, because this is utterly unique to this event. The spin wheel. James, what's happening here?
I would like to be able to say it with any authority what's going on, but this is confusing. In fact, this is wizardry in my mind. Each musician turns in a different direction to effect a 90-degree turn on the parade square. But the beauty is, although it does look slightly strange at certain points, they always seem to end up pointing in the right direction, which they will do right now.
And the instructions for this are never written down. It's like a secret recipe, isn't it?
That's exactly that. This is passed down from musician to musician. Quite rightly, I would hate to be the person that tries to write this down on a piece of paper.
We are now approaching the symbolic heart of today's ceremony and its meaning.
So this is the heart of the parade. This is where the colours are trooped amongst the ranks to allow every soldier on parade to recognise their own regimental colours. If you were to cast your imagination back to battlefields covered in smoke and fog and just misery, when all things go wrong, you need to have a place to rally, and that's what these colours are. They're also the spiritual body of a regiment. They are a useful reminder of our legacy, and it wouldn't be hard to argue that, certainly with a regiment with a history such as the Coldstream Guards, that every stitch is a fallen brother. It is useful to carry those reminders with us when we go in and out of battle. Now, whilst we don't carry them like this into battle anymore, we do take them on operations with us, but of course, no need to march behind these days.
The Coldstream Guards have 113 battle honours in all, the first of which is Tangier in 1680 and the last the Gulf in 1991. The music changes to the majestic Grenadiers' slow march as the escort prepares to troop the colour through the ranks. This is a very significant moment for the ensign, Lieutenant Max Martin. He spoke to us about being accorded the honour of trooping his regiment's colour.
So I spent a few years growing up in Sydney in Australia, and every year we used to watch the King's Birthday Parade on a neighbourhood full of Australians. It was quite funny that we'd be watching the morning after with our Vegemite toast and Union Jack bunting spread across the kitchen, and I absolutely never thought I'd have the privilege of being the ensign for this year's parade. There is absolutely both a physical and symbolic weight of the King's colour. I've been practicing my shoulder exercises in the gym so I can keep my right arm nice and parallel to the floor. But even greater than that is the symbolic weight of what it emphasises and symbolises, not just for the regiment now, but for all of those who've gone before us. To be able to do something so special and have such an important role is truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So despite the nerves, I'm hugely excited.
So lovely to hear from Max there, and he joins a very select group, doesn't he?
He really does. Of course, only one ensign is chosen per year. He's now a member of a very exclusive club.
And he's only 24 years old. Grew up watching the King's Birthday Parade on TV in Australia, so really, I guess, showcasing the global appeal of this.
Absolutely, and Max is a very mature young officer. He really does understand the symbolic weight of what he's carrying. And then just yesterday, whilst in Windsor, he was the ensign for that brand new colour that you see being on parade today, that was touched by the King only yesterday.
Officers, take post! Quick, march!
The field officer in fine voice, giving the command for the officers to take post.
Numbers 1 to 5 guard will retire. About. Turn. At the halt. Right form. Quick. March.
The Corps of Drums performed The Girl I Left Behind Me.
Played by the Corps of Drums, who epitomise what is the Household Division and the infantry. The role of the Corps of Drums is dual-hatted. They usually provide the machine gun platoon within most infantry regiments. So if you think about it in terms of without music, marching soldiers don't move around the parade square, but without machine gun fire, they don't move around the battlefield either.
And that snare drum makes a really sharp sound, doesn't it, when it's struck?
It really does. It's actually quite inspiring once it gets going.
Numbers 1 to 5 guard will advance. About. Turn. Number 6 guard, close order, march! Move to the right in 3s. Form 3s! Right! Guards will march past in slow and in quick time. By the left, slow, march!
Now that the colour has been trooped through the ranks, the guards formed up for the march past, and all 6 guards will march past the king in slow and quick time. The mass band's currently playing the neutral slow march by land and sea, chosen in recognition of King Charles's service in the Royal Navy.
There we see in the picture Major Andy Dickinson, who after this parade today will hand over number 7 company as he deploys on operations, which is a really good example of quite how quickly we flick between ceremonial and operational roles.
A hugely significant day for the Coldstream Guards, and the first time they've trooped their colour for King Charles III.
It's a very special moment, especially for the members of the escort, who are probably under a touch more scrutiny than the rest. But as this is only the 3rd trooping the colour for His Majesty King Charles III, most of those on parade will either have been on it once or twice, or this will be their first one on parade.
Can I ask you a question? Because that shot is absolutely perfect, to see the shape the foot makes while marching.
So the art of this, when you slow march, is toes downwards and outwards, which in In drill boots, it's slightly more difficult because there are 13 studs on the bottom. In officers' wellies, it's nice and smooth. So slow march is easier for officers than it is for soldiers, but the quick march, the soldiers with their studs have more grip than the officers do.
So you see there the slight hover of the foot. So leading the way there, the field officer and brigade waiting, Lieutenant Colonel Storm Green. He's the commanding officer of London Central Garrison, riding in his first birthday parade in the role, and you were, James, in his shoes last year, in his saddle last year. What is the role of field officer and brigade waiting?
So the field officer brigade waiting is in charge of the parade. He is responsible for delivering all the training and the day's parade. It is quite a lot of pressure, but by the time you've got to this point, you've put the hours in, everyone earned it in sweat, and so far it is going brilliantly.
Did you offer him any words of advice?
So what is quite a nice tradition is each field officer writes their replacement each year. I wrote to Storm a few points, but the key one I said was to enjoy the day. It's very easy to get sucked into delivering the parade rather than looking around you and enjoying the spectacle that it is.
Yeah, staying in the moment, hugely important, and by his own words, not a rider, but George, who he's riding there, is very, very experienced.
George has probably done this parade more than others and probably knows the words of command more than others.
And that is Jumping Jack there, because being ridden by the Major of the parade, Captain William Hart, and we hope Jumping Jack doesn't live up to his name.
No, I'm sure he won't, and the Major of the parade is a slightly thankless task in that he has to learn the whole parade, almost certain that he's not going to have to take over.
And the Ensign Lieutenant Max Martin takes up his position at the front of the escort with the colour. Is there an exact distance for a step in march, as it were?
There is for a pace, it's a 30-inch pace. As you can imagine, once it's multiplied around the parade square, it's not that easy, and that's where teamwork comes in. People have to be able to dress off left and right to keep the lines as straight as possible. Occasionally you will see a ripple, but it requires lots and lots of small movements and the confidence that it will come back together at the same time.
Prince Louis looking there through the window. He's 7 years old now. And made his first appearance actually on the balcony when he was only 1. Coldstream Guards slow march Figaro as they prepare to march past the King. The Ensign Lieutenant Max Martin lowers. Raises the colour, so that's the flourish and the recover.
The judgment moment for the Ensign, and I thought he did that brilliantly, on display on a brand new colour. The 44 of the 113 battle honours that the Coldstream Guards have proudly on display.
Marching past the King, King's Company Grenadier Guards. And Nijmegen Company, providing number 3 guard. And the Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, Her Majesty the Queen, watching on. And the Inkerman Company from the Grenadier Guards form number 4 guard. And now the turn of the 9 and 12 companies Irish Guards, heralded by the music change to their slow march, Let Erin Remember. And the Princess of Wales is the colonel of their regiment. And F Company Scots Guards complete the march past in slow time. And their colonel of the regiment, the Duke of Edinburgh, is on horseback there in the middle, beside the dais. Now, the adjutant of the parade, Captain Monty Badger of the Irish Guards, brings up the rear of the parade. You were on parade together last year.
That's right, so Monty was the subaltern for the escort last year who marched the escort forward to collect the colour with a very distinct voice, but his role today has changed somewhat. He's now on a horse, and his role is effectively to sweep up behind to make sure there's no stragglers at the back, which there never are.
The field officer in brigade waiting, Lieutenant Colonel Stormgreen, rides out to salute the King. Now, of the 8,000 people in the stands watching on, many of them are friends and family members, and Rati Chinyanganya has been speaking to some of them.
Well, I'm delighted to be joined by the incredible proud family of Trooper Isaiah Carolini of the Blues and Royals. We have Grandmother Dawn, we have Mother Lisa, and Lisa, first of all, what a day. Your son in his first ever parade. What a moment.
I know, it's amazing. And not only is it amazing, it's the fact that he's actually escorting the King. You know, he's not just in the parade, he's there up with the King, which is, you know, for a trooper so young in his career, you can't, yeah, it's words beyond me.
Absolutely right, well said. And talking about the King, he received something rather special from him recently.
Yeah, he won the Princess Elizabeth Cup, which is basically an award for the best overall trooper. So not just turned out, it's ridden, everything that a soldier does. It's just amazing. He's done so well.
And his success comes from the fact that he has a love for all things horses, even from when he was a young boy.
Yep, so literally born in the saddle, raised in the stables. So yeah, it's no surprise that he's become a horse guard.
And Dawn, as a grandmother, how proud are you to have seen his journey with Mother Lisa as well?
It's been an amazing journey, and I just well up every time I think of him and how he's got on so well. He's just done amazingly.
Your pride and love is absolutely palpable. Enjoy the day, you've all deserved it.
Thank you very much, thank you.
So lovely to hear from the family of Trooper Isaiah Carolini. We can see him there on the right-hand side among the retinue. And James, a reminder of how important friends and family are to those who serve in the armed forces.
It's hugely important. Without support from our families and friends, it's really all for naught. You know, there's the obvious pride that we see on here today, but there's also the pride and the welcome home when we go on operations.
And when you've been on parade, your family have been here in the stands to see you?
They've almost always been in the stands. Last year, I think the children were still at school, but it is a unique opportunity to see a side of what I do for a job. Sometimes the flick between the ceremony and the operation is a bit quicker than I'd like. In 2018, for example, I was captain of the escort, and by the end of the day, I was on an aeroplane on my way to Kabul.
Quick! March!
The guards have now reformed, ready for the march past in quick time. Watching on from the stands, Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, and his wife, Lady Victoria Starmer. So same pace here in terms of length, but obviously much faster.
Much faster, much harder to keep the dressing. Obviously, one large step will knock out the dressing quite significantly. So this is all about staying calm and collected now. Get settled in and get ready for the next left form.
And the neutral quick march this year, Northumbrian airs.
You will have noticed, absolutely, there is a Northumberland feel to a lot of the music. Northumberland, north of England, and indeed the southwest with Devon and Cornwall are the recruiting areas for the Coldstream Guards. But Northumberland music certainly does get the toes tapping.
I think helps keep that march in step as well. You mentioned the juxtaposition of taking part in the birthday parade and deploying on active service the next day almost. We say it often, but that dual role is such an integral part of being a foot guard.
It really is. It's also what keeps it exciting. Just recently, the Coldstream Guards and lots of other regiments across the army are also doing it. I've deployed on Operation Shader in the Middle East, Interflex, training the Ukrainian soldiers. And I mentioned my example of going out to Kabul, but I'm going out again to the Middle East later on this year for a year. It's sort of why we join.
You mentioned there the training of Ukrainian soldiers, and there are a significant number of people on parade who've been involved in that, Monty Badger being a good example.
Yes, it's hugely humbling for those who do that task, training Ukrainian soldiers, knowing that they are absolutely going to war within weeks of building a friendship. And of course it's difficult to train someone, get a friendship, and then see them go into war whilst you stay behind and train the next wave.
As the regiments parade past the King in quick time, we will be treated to a succession of quick marches with a distinct regimental or national flair. And this is a very familiar sound to you.
This is the quick march of the Coldstream Guards. I think this personally gets you an extra couple of inches on your marching pace. It really makes people puff their chests out, hold their chins high, and drive their heels in. It's brilliant.
Coldstream Guards Regimental Quick March, Milanollo. And now the 3 companies of Grenadier Guards march past to the British Grenadiers. It's King's Company. Company going past, followed by Inkerman Company. And the music changes to St Patrick's Day, the regimental quick march of the Irish Guards. Company Scots Guards bring up the rear to the well-known strains of Hielan Laddie. as the massed bands play the Marath line. The field officer rides out for the second time to salute the King. Executed Rainback, and let's hear from him.
I never thought I'd be in this role on a birthday parade, not least because I'm not a great rider, but I've learned to ride, been taught to ride by a great team, and so this is my third birthday parade, and it's a very different view from my previous two. I feel ready to go and give a good performance. I'll have my game face on, as you do, under a bare skin. Inside, my heart will be pounding, but I'll try and keep my head in the fridge. To see all the men and women out on parade today will instill an enormous sense of pride in me. Just knowing the sweat and tears that have gone into the rehearsals to be able to deliver for the King on the big stage today will make me feel great inside.
I have to say, I am extremely impressed in learning to ride and doing so well.
Yes, it's been a big ask for Storm, learning to ride, learning the words of command, and then delivering the parade. Having only taken over command from me in December is a big ask. But Storm is a very capable officer. He's doing a brilliant job today.
And it does help when you're riding a horse as experienced as George, who would almost know the commands.
George pretty much knows the commands. George could fall asleep halfway through and still pick up the parade as well, and he probably will fall asleep too.
He likes a little nap, does he?
Yes, he does.
And for Storm, there's obviously all of those commands to remember and the strength of voice to get through them.
The voice training is part of the journey that the field officer has to go through. So whilst you see on parade all the guards were learning their position and they're getting their bodies used to this drill manoeuvre, he's got to get his voice into the same condition. It is hard work, and if it goes, the whole parade stops.
Just one more thought on Storm. We talked about family support, and his have flown from South Africa.
That's right, his mother's flown over from South Africa and is watching with the rest of his family in the stands, his wife Rosie and his children Ollie and Evie.
Shoulder! Arms! In open order! Left and right! Press! Hands! And drums! On those to the right! Right! Turn! By the center! Kick! March!
The corps of drums strike up once again, this time with Lily Bolero, a tune often attributed to Henry Purcell. As the Foot Guards and mass bands reform, they make way for the mounted troops, the Household Cavalry, the King's Troop, Royal Horse Artillery to move on to the parade ground. You see there, though, the magnificent band of the Household Cavalry, led by the Director of Music, Major Craig Bywater, and those glorious drum horses, Major Apollo and Major Juno, both of the horses holding that rank of Major. First of the mounted troops, the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, ride onto the parade ground, led by their commanding officer, Major Luke Wadman, who's riding Sir Yornbury Dawdle, also known as Boris. Chargers of the King's Troop all have unusual names. They're named after characters from Jorrocks' hunting diaries. They range from Marmaduke Mullygrubs to Lord Firebrand, and those names unique to each horse. They're never used twice. And as for the regiment, they were given the name the King's Troop by King George VI in 1946, and the late Queen requested that they keep that name in memory of her father. See the gun and limber pulled by 3 pairs of horses. You get leaders, centres and wheelers. And the King salutes the lead gun, which constitutes their colour. Gun and limber weighs 1.5 tons. And with the horse team is approximately 54 foot long. And in demonstration of the term horsepower, the gun and limber are pulled, as I was saying, by 3 pairs of horses. The front pair tend to be taller and more athletic. They act as the accelerator. The centre pair, slightly smaller, and the pair nearest the gun are the most powerful. So essentially you're looking for bigger bottoms there, and they act as the brakes of the team. And we will see and hear them later on when they fire the Royal Salute in just under 15 minutes' time. Now, the 2 regiments of the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment, and this year it is the Blues and Royals who have the honour of riding in front as 1st and 2nd divisions of the Sovereign's Escort. The standard of the Blues and Royals. I saw Princess Anne watching on there. Her 27th year as Colonel of the regiment. Uniform of the Household Cavalry is 2 features not often seen on other soldiers: those shiny silver helmets with brass and silver fittings, and the long plume of horsehair hanging from the top. And many of the original helmets passed down the generations. So the 3rd and 4th divisions of the Sovereign's escort, the Life Guards. And bringing up the rear, you see there the gleaming axes of the farriers. Field officer's trumpeter, Trooper Lizen, sounding the trot past. The trumpeter traditionally rode next to the commanding officer, always on a grey horse, which could be seen more easily on the battlefield amongst all the black horses, and he has to gallop round and slot back into place near the front. So this is always quite an exciting moment, James.
It really is. Made more special for me that horse is Onyx, who was my horse in the centre of the parade last year. I think she's almost showing as much energy as she had last year too.
She's got a very pink nose, hasn't she? Does she? Funnily enough, did they need sunscreen? Don't they?
They do. She had a sunscreen powder on her nose, which she really didn't like having put on. But it did make a difference because during the training she got sunburn occasionally.
202 horses on parade in total, so 59 of them with the King's Troop, 86 with the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment, 40 with the band of the Household Cavalry. And just as the Foot Guards march past in slow and quick time, so do the mounted troops. And once again, the turn of the King's Troop. To the music of the regimental trot past of both the Household Cavalry and the King's Troop, Keel Row, a traditional Tyneside melody. King's Troop tend to be more experienced riders. They very much pick their regiment because they are horse lovers. Slightly more functional riding, uniform and saddles than the Household Cavalry who you see now. His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Queen acknowledging the standard of Blues and Royals. It remains at the carry during the trot past. And no one on parade in uniform has an easy task, especially if the weather were even warmer than it is today. But for the Household Cavalry, I'd always think that sitting trot is never very comfortable.
It's never comfortable. It doesn't even look comfortable at times either. But what is really nice is, and of course none of us would ever tell each other that, but the Foot Guards respect the cavalry respect the Foot Guards, and the King's Troop. They all have different roles, different uniforms, and different levels of uncomfortable. But agree, none are comfortable today on a sticky weather day.
The Director of Music, Major Craig Bywater, leads the band of the Household Cavalry as they pay their own tribute to the King on his official birthday. And as he salutes the King, the kettle drummers on the two great drum horses cross their sticks as a symbol of respect. Customary salute. And both Apollo and Juno going at exactly the right pace. You can see, rather than being controlled as reins normally would be by the hands, obviously the drummers can't do that, so they control them with their feet. I mentioned earlier the drum horses have the rank of Major when they're on parade. Major Apollo is 17 hands 3 inches, and Major Juno, she's 18 hands high. And those solid silver kettle drums, they're only ever played in the presence of senior royalty. They weigh 60 kilograms a pair, and each of them date back to the early 1800s. So they are truly priceless. But that really is a magnificent sight. And the band of the Household Cavalry halts. The director of music will turn, signalling that he's handing back control of the parade to the field officer for the final birthday salute to the King here on Horse Guards Parade.
Royal salute! Present! Arms! Guards! In close order! Left and right! Dress!
And the guards dress, this time all the guards, in one long line. Precise movements here, achieved with no words of command.
This takes a lot of practice. This is, again, teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. Each person gives the nod to the person next to them, and it looks really smart. It does take a lot of practice, though.
Guards will form 3 ranks. Form 3 ranks. Guards will retire. About turn. At the halt. By divisions! Right form! Quick march!
James, what is happening here?
So this is to enable the guards to fit down the mall as they return back to barracks. You will notice shortly that the escort also splits in a further 2. The front half with the colour will, as they go down back to Buckingham Palace, will go into the palace and conduct the famous change of guard ceremony, and they will be on duty in the palace for the next 24 hours. The remainder of the guards will return back to Wellington Barracks.
About turn! Guards on the escort! Form close column! Remainder! Quick march!
The Regimental Sergeant Major's orderly now returns his pace stick.
Guards! Left! Press!
And the left guide, Sergeant Robbie Cockings, moves out to the right so that all the guards can see him, and when he drops his arm, it gives the signal to all 6 guards to eyes front.
Shoulder! Arms! Stand at ease!
The field officer now trots forward on George to ask His Majesty's permission to march off to Buckingham Palace, where there's more ceremony still to come once the regiments of foot guards have escorted His Majesty the King back down the Mall.
His Majesty's Guards are formed up and ready to march off, sir.
And George is so experienced now, I wonder whether he ever anticipates the next move, James.
He does. I've ridden George before. He knows all of these parades better than anybody else and absolutely anticipates it. However, credit to Storm, having only been on a horse for about 6 months.
Yeah.
He is doing an absolutely outstanding job. Nobody would notice.
And we see the Garrison Sergeant Major there, Vern Stokes. And you know him extremely well. We talked earlier about that special piece of music composed in his honour. But what sort of a man is he?
So most people would probably think of the Garrison Sergeant Major as born just like that, but it's taken a long time. He has been a guardsman. He's done this on parade. He's worked his way through the ranks. And he was a company sergeant major when I was a young captain, and we were out in Iraq. We've shared a few scrapes together, as you can see there. He's also had an extraordinary innings whilst he's been in the role as the Garrison Sergeant Major, everything from the Jubilee to the funeral of the late Queen and the coronation. He's organised British events that we are going to read about for years to come. It's really special to have seen him on parade today and have a piece of music written for him especially, and to see him smile on parade. It's really heartwarming.
And his relationship with the Coldstream Guards goes back to the age of 16 when he joined as a junior leader from his hometown in Shropshire.
Of which now he's a Deputy Lieutenant of the county.
Oh, is he? And he's waiting to give the signal when everyone is ready. Duchess of Edinburgh there. And Tim Lawrence on their way back to the palace. And the household cavalry. And what a sight this is for the members of the public who are gathered along the Mall, stretching as it does like a big red carpet leading all the way to Buckingham Palace. And the Majesties, the King and Queen, in the Landau carriage, ready for that return procession. And it was at almost exactly this point last year that the heavens opened and a storm erupted, didn't it, James?
It really did. It became comedy at this moment because the rain was splashing up knee-high for the guardsmen on the parade ground. And after this part here, where the Field Officer Brigade waiting rides out to join the Prince of Wales, we were both soaked to the skin, and all we could do was look at each other and have a little chuckle.
George and Prince Louis there, keeping their eyes peeled, looking out for everything, and Princess Charlotte sitting alongside the Princess of Wales. Having hugely enjoyed what they have witnessed. The Guards march off, accompanying the royal procession back to Buckingham Palace, as ever accompanied by the rousing music from the bands of the Household Division, led by their commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Halliday. So, James, was that a trooping of the colour to make all Coldstreamers proud?
Absolutely. Having been on the journey with all of the troops on parade for the last few months, that was what perfection looks like. It was a really, really good effort, and I think under very difficult circumstances, it is hot out there, it has been sticky, and they have done a brilliant job. So are we all proud? Absolutely.
And talk about transferable skills. There is a real benefit to learning to march in time, to sharing this experience together, the precision, the discipline, the stamina required to get it right. These are all very important life skills.
They are, and they're also translatable to the battlefield, which of course is the primary role of an infantry soldier. Teamwork, precision and timeliness, added with fieldcraft and skill at arms, is exactly what we do. And this is just a slightly more dated version of what we currently do on the battlefield.
And the field officer rides in procession amongst the royal family, and is that an opportunity for the first debrief?
Well, it's said that the late Majesty the Queen used to beckon the Field Officer and Brigade waiting to the back wheel to have a quick conversation as they went down the Mall ahead of the formal debrief when you get to Buckingham Palace. We'll see as the procession goes down the Mall, but certainly, well, as I said before, I ended up having a bit of a chuckle with the Prince of Wales because it was so ridiculous the amount that the water came down.
Very, very different scenes today, with the sun shining strongly above, a proper summer's day in London, and the King now making the journey down the Mall to Buckingham Palace, where there's so much more still to come, including the royal family's annual balcony appearance. And that is where they will watch the Royal Air Force fly past. It will all be here on BBC One. We will be live until 1:10 and you can also access audio-described commentary with JJ Chalmers via the red button and iPlayer, and uninterrupted coverage with no commentary or interviews. That is also on iPlayer. The Sovereign's procession with the mounted band of the Household Cavalry leading the way, followed by the Blues and Royals of the Sovereign's escort immediately in front of the King. And as they continue their journey, I'm delighted to say that joining us is none other than author and broadcaster Giles Brandreth. Giles, good afternoon as it is now, and what have you made of Trooping the Colour this year?
Well, wonderful that there's no rain on this parade. It really is fantastic. And of course, friends and family are here, and I can count myself as one of those because I have a son-in-law who, as James knows, is a Coldstreamer and who served in Afghanistan. But watching this moving, magnificent parade, it's a reminder that this is a big national day and an international day too. You know, there are 29 monarchies around the world, a dozen in Europe. But all that we're seeing today is a reminder of why the British monarchy does stand out from the crowd. No one else does anything quite like this, and no one does it quite like this either. I think it's fantastic. A big national and international day. And what I love is the way that these are modern military men and women, but the whole thing is rooted in our extraordinary heritage. This goes back, really to King Charles's namesake, Charles II, in the 17th century, this King's birthday parade. And here we are in 2025. The King, we call it the birthday parade, of course the King is actually 77 in November. But here he is, on top of his game, as busy as he's ever been, in fact I think busier than ever. And for him, this will be a very important day, because he was brought up in a military tradition. Both of his parents, the military life was central to their lives, as it is to his. And so for him, wearing this uniform today, seeing these men and women, is part and parcel, well, it's central to his role.
And James, the King and troops marching off together, a strong reminder of the relationship between monarch and the Household Division at the heart of today's ceremony.
It really is. The Household Division are the Sovereign's personal troops. To have him lead us back to Buckingham Palace is a really special thing. It's a really lovely thing to be a part of, and it's certainly something for those who are doing their very first parade, they'll remember for an awfully long time.
And as we see Prince Louis and Prince George, Princess Charlotte there, a reminder that there are 3 generations of monarch in this procession with the King and Prince of Wales and his children, James.
And happily for us, we can master their names more easily than we used to be able to in years gone by, because the King George the Sixth, you know, he was actually known as Bertie by his family, and his predecessor, Edward VIII, was commonly known as David, whereas happily King Charles is King Charles III, and William, now Prince of Wales, is going to be William V. It's not quite his birthday yet, but he will be 43 on the 21st of June. And George, happily, 12 on the 22nd of July, he's our future George VII. So this is history on the march, but the future in evidence too.
I'm very relieved, James, that it didn't get any warmer and that slight breeze kept up, because I imagine that under those bearskins it can get very hot indeed.
Absolutely. I think whilst you'd think it's a little bit easier marching off, I think it's good to get the limbs going, but I think there's going to be a few sweaty heads underneath those bearskins, and everyone's going to be welcoming a nice cool drink once they get back to barracks.
Giles, strong connections with the armed forces across the family, and the Queen, it means an awful lot to her, and she's Colonel of the Grenadier Guards.
Absolutely. And she's had a marvellous day. She often appeared to be saluting. I think that's because she was having a little bit of anxiety over the hat in the breeze today. But so she was able to hold the edge of it at the right moment. But yes, all the family have military involvements. I mean, as well as the King and the Queen here today, we've seen the three colonels, and here you have the Princess of Wales and her three children who are already interested in all that's going on, and will be taking part in a moment when we see them on the balcony. This is very much the family firm in action. All the working royals here.
And it has to be teamwork, doesn't it? There's so much to do.
There is so much to do. I mean, in the past week, the King has been busy every day, but he was visiting Lancaster during the week, he was in Spitalfields, he was celebrating the 35th anniversary of his foundation. The Duke of Edinburgh, we saw on parade today. We remember him as Prince Edward, but he was recreated as Duke of Edinburgh by the King. He's been out and about. He went to the Chelsea Hospital Founders Day. Prince William, our Prince of Wales, as Duke of Cornwall, was in Cornwall this week. And I think he was there with the Duchess of Edinburgh. So as a team, they all work together. Duchess of Edinburgh, Sophie, of course, she's there. Here we see the Queen. She's been out and about this week at the big lunch. She was at the Garden Museum. She was at events for the Queen's Reading Room, her charity for encouraging reading. They're all at it all the time. And the Princess Royal, of course, is always out and about. There isn't a day when she isn't doing something. I think about a week ago she was in Barbados representing the King. So it is a family firm. And today is the day when they're all seen on duty. And this is a celebratory day. They're celebrating the sovereign's birthday.
Three youngest members on parade, all happily at school in Windsor, very enthusiastic about their studies. They're all really keen on sport and the outdoors as well. And
well, one of them is particularly keen, Prince George, on what is to come, because unlike some other 11-year-olds, he has actually had his first flying lesson, and became the youngest member of the royal family ever, sort of to kick-start his career in the sky last September. Yeah, isn't that extraordinary?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, the King served in the Navy and in the Air Force, but I don't think he actually served in the Army. I think he was encouraged to the Navy and the Air Force by his father, the late Duke of Edinburgh, and they're starting Prince George on this path pretty young.
And there was a lovely photo, wasn't there, released of Princess Charlotte for her birthday in the camouflage sort of combat outfit in Cumbria.
They're being brought up in this tradition. It's, you know, our monarchy has a history stretching back 1,000 years. And as I like to say, what's remarkable about the institution is that it is, wants to be, needs to be, as modern as tomorrow, but it has a lot of time for yesterday. And also their grandparents here, King Charles, very much encouraging his grandchildren to take an interest in all of this and involving them. You may remember at V-Day, we saw Prince George meeting the veterans and hearing their stories.
And he was fascinated by that, wasn't he? Asking a lot of questions and very, very engaged.
It's a most unusual life these people are leading, these children are leading, a very unusual life. But I think they've been brought up with the idea of being interested in other people. Curiosity is the success, is the secret of the success of having a good life as a young royal, be interested in other people.
And lining the Mall all the way down, we see the streetliners still standing tall. They play such an important role, James.
They really do. First out, last back, and they do provide a very serious, real security role as the Sovereign goes up and down the Mall in concert with the Met Police. It's a crucial role, but sometimes thankless.
Those Windsor Greys, such a striking sight. bit like the trumpeter's grey horse, very, very much to stand out from the crowd, as is correct, as they are drawing the carriage that contains the monarch.
And they're just coming round past the Victoria Memorial, which they always look out on from the balcony. Reminder of our second longest reigning monarch, Queen Victoria, who I think only attended the Sovereign's birthday parade in person on one occasion in 1895. But it was in Queen Victoria's reign, really, that Buckingham Palace, where they're arriving now, became the headquarters of the British monarchy.
And not built originally for a king or queen, was it?
Very much not so, no. It was originally known as Buckingham House, and it was built for the Duke of Buckingham on a site that had been, well, in private ownership for a long time. It was acquired by George III in 1761 as a private residence for his Queen Charlotte, and it became known as the Queen's House. And during the 19th century, it was enlarged by architects John Nash and Edward Blore, who constructed 3 wings around the central courtyard that you can see through the arch there. And it became the London residence of the monarch on the accession of Queen Victoria in 1837.
So the king taking his place in the centre gate. The rest of the royal family will watch from the forecourt and from the balcony.
And the king is very keen to encourage people to visit all these palaces. He regards himself as the custodian of the palaces, but he really does feel that they are for people to visit. So in years to come, I mean, Buckingham Palace is already open to visitors, as are the gardens, but there's going to be many more opportunities to visit the palace, the Royal Mews, where you can see the horses and the royal cars, but you will be able to actually visit the state apartments and more of the private parts of the palace, I think, in the future.
Yeah, over 500,000 people visited last year. 530,000 visitors. Now, the march past at Buckingham Palace, and what's the meaning of this part of the day, James?
So this was my favourite part of the parade. This is a job done, and you are going past the Colonel-in-Chief, bidding him farewell and returning to barracks. This is the culmination of the parade for the Foot Guards. As they come off this way, you'll later see the Household Cavalry and King's Troop head off the other way. But this is really special. A private, not particularly any crowds around. And then shortly after this is when the Field Officer Brigade waiting will go get his debrief.
Now, I love fascinating facts, okay? So I'm going to ask you, what is the regimental mascot of the Coldstream Guards?
So whilst we don't have an Irish wolfhound, perhaps like the Irish Guards, historically we have a goose called Jacob. And the story of that is a tented camp, a goose alerted an intruder, and everyone stood to and repelled the intruders.
Is this for real? Is he making it up?
He's not making it up. Jacob the goose is their mascot. And geese are very good guard animals. Going right back to Roman times, famously good. Still in step. Still going strong. This is the reaching the end of their duties today, but my word, the hours that have gone into making this so impressive, and fitness required as well to get through it smoothly.
It's physical fitness and mental robustness, actually. So the physical getting your body around the square is one thing, then doing it in a tunic and then doing it in hot weather, that is hard work. But if you allow yourself to daydream whilst on these parades, you will be punished by yourself. And that's when you do see incidents happen. It's normally because someone has switched off or paid attention to something else and then flick back to the parade and they're not quite on the same page of the book that they thought they were.
There, of course,
figures riding by.
There is a cultural and even a commercial benefit to all of this as well as the military one, in that this is very much part of what makes brand Britain punch above its weight. I mean, this is what people think of as British pageantry at its best, and it is exactly that. But it's how people around the world see our country.
Now riding around the Queen Victoria Monument, the mounted troops paying their final tribute of the day to His Majesty the King, and King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery and their gun carriages. And they're going to ride into Green Park shortly to begin preparations for the 41-gun Royal Salute a little later on. You can see still full of energy, those horses. They've behaved exceptionally well. Are so good at coping with extraneous noises, as you would expect from King's Troop horses. They will stand safely behind, obviously at a good distance from the gun salute, but barely flinch when the big noises occur. 59 horses and 6 guns. And the King is the Captain General of the regiment. Right at the back, we're going to see Adjutant Captain Lucy Henry riding Marmaduke Mullygrubs, who's known by the rather handier name of Basil, and has been in multiple ceremonial operations. They are, generally speaking, the calmest horses on parade. They are rock solid. So right at the back there, that's Lucy Henry and Basil. Household Cavalry now with their march past. So the Blues and Moors and the Life Guards. And again, it's the sight of it, Giles, and the impressive. And when you're down there on the ground, actually, the sound of it as well. So impressive. Oh, a little bit of disturbance there. Sit tight.
But what's wonderful to see that, it's a reminder these are real men and women riding real horses.
The drum horses, Apollo and Juno, lead the mounted band of the Household Cavalry off parade. The musicians there wearing the state coat, which signals they are members of the royal household. Crimson velvet, gold braid and lace. The oldest ceremonial uniform in the regular army. It's remained virtually unchanged since 1685. And His Majesty the King now heading inside Buckingham Palace, ready for the balcony appearance and further tributes from the armed forces to mark his official birthday. The RAF fly past, the annual birthday gun salute as well.
Good to see the Duke of Kent there on the balcony with the other royal dukes.
And standing right there in prime position, let's join Radzi Chinyanganya.
Claire, thank you very much. It really is prime position. I feel very lucky to be here. And actually, a man who works very much behind the scenes at the meticulous detail of the optic display we've seen is Sergeant Ignatius Putty, Welsh Guardsman and Senior Tailor at Wellington Barracks. Ignatius, first of all, in terms of what you do, just how much hard work has gone into trooping the colour?
I'll say it's a tremendous amount of work preparing for all the uniforms for the trooping the colour this year, because I think the work behind the scene, because we kind of look back till last year, December. That's when our kind of preparation start going into make the day special like this. So, yeah.
The amazing thing was, off air when you were watching this, you said, I don't get much of an opportunity to look at this. How much of a joy is it for you to see it and looking so glorious?
Oh, 100%. I said, it is such a joy to see. I said, regarding just talking about myself, but all the other tailors can look back yourself in today. What a proud moment for all of us. Just to kind of look back and just the final product, to see everyone is looking so spectacular.
Very telling that you speak about us, not I. And just finally, the challenge of having a new monarch, what has that brought to yourself?
Also, I'll say the challenge for us would have come when it was the coronation. Mounting all the medals into the time, I'll say, was quite a amount of time. And same as working with the insignias, changing the ranks and stuff, would say. But yeah, it all went up well at the end, so yeah.
It worked very well in the end. It's safe to say it looks absolutely stunning.
Sergeant Ignatius Putty there, not only a talented tailor, also a very talented rugby player. So the crowds making their way down the Mall, and the Metropolitan Police doing a fabulous job as ever at marshalling them. Among them, Sergeant David Christie with 26 trooping the colours under his belt. This is his final parade. And all of those people hoping for a glimpse of one of the most enduring images of birthday parades, past and present, the balcony appearance from the royal family ahead of the annual RAF flypast. And that flypast is formed of aircraft coming together from all across the UK in a spectacular feat of coordination. We took a look behind the scenes at what it takes to bring it all together.
In this year's King's Birthday Flypast, I've got two roles really. I'll be flying in my Typhoon, but I'm also the Deputy Mission Commander. 29 different aircraft will be involved in the flypast itself, coming from over 9 different air bases. There'll be 11 groups of aircraft. Some of them will be on their own. For example, the Lancaster from the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight.
I've been flying the Lancaster now for 9 years. And when you climb on board the aircraft, the smells, the vibration, the sound, it truly gets the hairs going on the back of the neck. Originally, 7,377 of these aircraft were built, and only 2 remain airworthy in the world. The Lancaster is such an important aircraft for the Royal Air Force. It's what it represents. So when we fly these aeroplanes, we truly are standing on the shoulders of giants. It's flying on behalf of those Allied personnel that fought in the Second World War. It's on behalf of those 55,000 Bomber Command volunteer aircrew with an average age of 21 that didn't come home.
We will be flying at multiple different speeds. So the helicopters out front will be flying a lot slower than I will be flying in my Typhoon down the back.
My role this year is to lead the team of engineers on the day. They'll carry out a visual survey to make sure it is serviceable and safe to fly. And the aircrew come out, check the engines are running appropriately, and they'll do the see-off to marshal them away. This is their bread and butter. You know, they work to tight timelines every day to deliver aircraft to tasking. So they do it very well, very safely. Yeah, I'm proud to be leading them on the day.
I'll be one of the wingmen in the Typhoon formation, so my job will be focusing on the lead aircraft and staying in position. Flying over London, it can definitely get quite bumpy. With a lot of high-rise buildings, if there's a bit of wind, the wind can cause quite turbulent air. And when you're trying to hold references off another aeroplane in bumpy air, it can be quite challenging.
We want to make sure we've got enough safe airspace between us so we don't get closer than we expect to. Now, the closest we want to be is 45 seconds over the top of the palace. Then after the palace, we'll all turn different directions and we'll all end up climbing to different altitudes and then separating safely after for air traffic.
It's quite a big task with multiple aircraft involved in the formation, spanning over 120 miles, going straight through southeast airspace, which is some of the most congested in Europe. We have to liaise with NATS, National Air Traffic Services, and the Civil Aviation Authority to protect them against the general air traffic.
I'm Red 7 this year. It's my second year in the team. It's always really special bringing up the rear of Flypast. The Hawk is a really sensitive aircraft to fly, so they're tiny, tiny inputs. And the closer you are to Red 1, the more stable you've got to be because you've got everybody else outside you relying on you staying in the right place. We're trying not to magnify the effect and end up looking like a slinky down at the back end. We don't often get to spend much time looking out of the window. You might catch the Shard whizzing by, but otherwise we're just concentrating on being in exactly the right place, making sure we put the right colour smoke out.
So this year's birthday fly past is really exciting because it's a world first for any aerobatic team. We're going to be flying on sustainable aviation fuel that's manufactured from animal fats and vegetable feed, blended with traditional fuel up to 40 to 50%, and also a plant-based biofuel for the smoke vapour. I think this is a great thing, not just for the Red Arrows, but for the Royal Air Force and the United Kingdom on the whole. And hopefully the King will be looking up on the day with a massive smile on his face, knowing that we're going there to meet that net zero agenda.
The sound of 4 Merlin engines from the Lancaster going overhead, the emotion that the crowds, the emotion that the veterans have when they get close to this aircraft, you know, whether it be tears, elation, waving Union Jack flags as we pass over the mile. I've never known an aircraft like the Lancaster that can do that.
I feel immense pride in doing this. It's something we can tell our families that we've been a big part of on the day.
When you're flying it, you're concentrating on delivering the mission and being in the right place at the right time. It's normally afterwards when you realise they're national events, they're historic events, and they're great to look back on.
I've never seen it live in person. It's always just been the dots on the radar screen, but maybe in the future I might be able to get on board an aircraft and fly through it. That would be incredible.
And I see the aircraft going over Buckingham Palace with the smoke looking great, and knowing that that's sustainable, to be honest, it's probably going to be one of the proudest achievements of my professional life.
The passion and precision is absolutely remarkable. We are now so excited because we're moments away from seeing the fly past, the red, white and blue, so much so the 21 gun salute is currently firing. And to talk about the fly past and much besides, I'm delighted to be joined by the Group Captain Hannah Bishop from RAF Chinook. Hannah, first of all, big news for the Red Arrows, flying with a sustainable fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really proud that we're using this prestigious occasion today to showcase our progress with sustainable aviation fuel. In particular, the iconic red, white and blue that you'll know from the Red Arrows this year will be biofuel, providing our own salute, a bit less noisy than this one.
And in terms of King Charles as well, I imagine, first of all, he's the head of the forces, but from an RAF perspective, he's got his wings, so do his sons. It must be lovely to have a monarch who really knows and appreciates what you do.
Yeah, absolutely, and he really does understand that commitment and sacrifice that all members of the armed forces and their families make to be part of serving our nation. We were really honoured and lucky earlier this year that in March we were able to fly His Majesty from Sandringham on board a Chinook to HMS Prince of Wales before she set sail for the Far East as part of the Carrier Strike Group, so it's a real honour.
By the way, the thundering nature of that gun salute, you can genuinely feel the ground shake. In terms of yourself, Group Captain of RAF Chinook, I imagine there's an aircraft you'll be looking out for with particular BDI.
Yeah, I'm really honoured and proud that today, of all 29 aircraft, the front 4 are going to be from the Royal Air Force Chinook Force. So I'll be looking out for them. It's an iconic machine, battle-proven since it came into service in 1982. Lifts 10 tonnes, 55 troops, and as it thunders down the Mall, you'll really be able to hear that blade slap.
And talking about thundering, I've never thundered down the Mall before. You have for the coronation fly past. What is it like?
It's quite a thing, it really is. So they would have woken up this morning, been a little bit nervous, a little bit excited, but generally right now they're airborne, they're on their way in, and they'll just be focusing on the job at hand. But when they land, they'll be able to reflect on a job really well done, and I hope, particularly for my crews, that they can have a quick peek as they fly down the Mall and have a look at the balcony, have a look at these amazing crowds and really be proud of what they've done.
Thank you for your time, Hannah. They'll have a peek. We'll definitely have more than a peek at them because this is going to be something special.
It really is. Thanks so much to Radzi and to Group Captain Hannah Bishop. And what a great film that was before. Really seeing the view from the cockpit.
An amazing film.
Oh,
I have to say, the King will be particularly excited. This is going to be an environmentally friendly fly past because, of course, that's one of his commitments. They mostly begin with the letter C. He's into climate and conservation. He's into the Commonwealth. He's into community. He's into culture. And he's into continuity. And all of those really play a part in what today is all about.
Meanwhile, as you can hear and see, the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery firing their 41-gun salute. And for each round, the commanding officer, Major Luke Wadham, gives the order to fire. And the Regimental Sergeant Major Pagan Skelly, next to him, will pierce a piece of leather to keep track of the number of rounds. And it's 41-gun salute. James, why?
So a standard royal gun salute for the King is 21 guns, and this stems from Navy precedents. When a ship entered a port, they would discharge their armories to show no hostile intent. A full exchange of that was 21 guns. However, because it's in a royal park, an additional 20 is added, so 41 guns.
Very well explained. And each of those guns 120 years old this year. The crowds are gathering and trying to get themselves a position from which they will be able to see the balcony of Buckingham Palace. They will definitely all get a tremendous view of the RAF fly past as it makes its way straight down the Mall. You can see that the keen ones running to get to the front. And Giles, as you mentioned earlier, a real sign of the enduring appeal of the royal family.
Well, do you know who thought of the idea of the balcony? Because that was put up long after the palace was originally built. It's part of the East Front, really came into being in the 19th century and then continued into the 20th century. It was Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband, who came up with the idea of having a balcony where the royals could be seen and where they could see the public. And so it has been the place where we see the royals and they see us. I was thinking at the time of the VE Day celebrations, how I think I'm right in saying that the only non-member of the royal family ever to stand centre stage on that balcony was the great Winston Churchill at VE Day after the Second World War. And the only person to stand in the crowds, to join the crowds like these who are running up towards the gates of Buckingham Palace to wave up at the balcony, was the late Queen Elizabeth II when she was Princess Elizabeth at VE Day.
And we will see members of the royal family very shortly on the balcony because the RAF fly past is about to start. And we heard earlier the 29 aircraft due to take part are drawn from Royal Air Force stations around the United Kingdom. And they have joined holding patterns over the North Sea before coming together in formation for the flypast. They will fly directly down the length of the Mall, over Buckingham Palace and above that balcony. And talk about precision timing. Their Majesties the King and Queen making their way onto the balcony so that they can see the crowds can see them, and they can see and hear this fly past. And in wave 1 we see the 4 Chinooks. They come from 18 and 27 Squadron, and among the crew on the lead aircraft are Wing Commander Bone, who flew His Majesty the King on a Chinook earlier this year, and Master Aircrew Ruffles, for whom this is one of his last flights before leaving the RAF after over 40 years of service. Those Chinooks can carry up to 55 troops or 10 tons in freight. In the second wave of the flypast, the unmistakable sound of the iconic Lancaster, operated by RAF's Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, based at RAF Coningsby in Lincolnshire. 2025 marks the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, and the Lancaster, one of the most successful RAF heavy bombers of the Second World War. And this is one of just 2 airworthy Lancasters left in the world. Now behind the Lancaster come 3 RAF training aircraft, a Phenom from RAF Cranwell and 2 Texans from RAF Valley. Prince of Wales there, particularly knowledgeable about his aircraft. And I think the young princes and Princess Charlotte very much enjoying and appreciating what is going on above them. In the 4th wave of the flypast, the A400 Atlas from RAF Bryce Norton in Oxfordshire. Now that can carry 37 tons. It can land on remote airfields or land on short, unprepared or semi-prepared strips. Heavily involved in Operation Pitting, the UK's evacuation of civilians from Afghanistan in 2021. More than 15,000 people were flown out of Kabul by the RAF then. Next we have the Voyager, the RAF's sole air-to-air refuelling tanker aircraft. And on each wing of the Voyager is a Typhoon from 12 Squadron, based at RAF Coningsby. Much discussion and feedback between the King and the Queen. And next we see a Poseidon from RAF Lossiemouth in Scotland. It's a multi-role maritime patrol aircraft equipped for anti-submarine warfare as well as surveillance and search and rescue missions. And the wingspan on this, 123 feet. It's also 129 feet in length. It's pretty tall as well, so it's a massive aircraft. And on board is Wing Commander Watson, the mission commander for all the aircraft in the flypast today. He'll be in the rear of the aircraft, monitoring communications. Now behind this we have the C-17 Globemaster from RAF Brize Norton with F-35 Lightning jets from RAF Marham on each wing. I think Prince Louis enjoying that. And in 2022, a Globemaster, you may remember, carried the body of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II from Edinburgh to Northolt ahead of the Sovereign State funeral in London. The Duchess of Edinburgh laughing with the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester. Duke of Edinburgh there as well. Next we have 4 Typhoons flying in Box 4 formation. They're from 29 Squadron RAF Coningsby. And among the 4 pilots is Wing Commander Hart, the Deputy Mission Commander, we heard in the film earlier. Appreciate the closeness of that formation and its precision even more, having seen the pictures we saw from the cockpit. Prince Louis waving to the crowds. And here we go, the Red Arrows, the RAF aerobatic team who provide the colourful finale to the flypast, and that world first this year as they fly using sustainable fuel for both their engines and for the coloured vapour trails. You see that trademark red, white and blue. The 9-jet formation is led by Red 1, Squadron Leader Bond, a former frontline Typhoon pilot. What a wonderful sight and sound, and Prince Louis there, only 7 years old, taking it very seriously. Giles, a busy week ahead, actually.
A busy week ahead, starting with the Garter ceremony at Windsor on Monday, then there's Royal Ascot, then there's going to be the state visit from the French president. This show goes on, but it's been running a long time. On that balcony, the entire working royal family, from the grandsons of King George V, the Dukes of Gloucester and Kent were there, right through to the grandchildren of the present king. So this is working royalty in action and proving that they are indeed as modern as tomorrow, but we've seen a lot of time for yesterday today.
And James, working military in action as well.
What a brilliant display, both from the Foot Guards on parade, with all the horse and the cavalry and the King's Troop, and then the finale with the fly past. What a display here in the capital.
And a very, very strong attendance from the public as well. And as events draw to a close here in central London, don't forget you can watch highlights at 7 o'clock on BBC Two and on iPlayer. But for now, huge thanks to my expert guests, Colonel James Colby and Giles Brandreth, who've been with me all morning. And I think we all agree that was truly majestic, a wonderful display of military precision and impressive aerial manoeuvres to celebrate the official birthday of King Charles III. A day of pageantry, history and warm public affection, with huge respect to all those who have taken part in Trooping the Colour for 2025. And from all of us here at the BBC, thank you for being with us and goodbye.